Another LSU veteran set to play in the Texas Bowl against Baylor. So how will the Tigers stack up against the Bears? Let's talk about it. Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well, so please subscribe. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. LSU Hoops gets a win over UNO. We'll talk about who is in and who is out, kind of breaking down that Texas Bowl matchup as we're just about a week away from LSU and Baylor. But the Tigers did get some good news on Sunday. Veteran defensive lineman Paris Shand announced he will play in the bowl game against Baylor. It was interesting. Our compadres over at Locked On Baylor suggested recently in one of their thumbnails that the entire LSU offense is out against the Bears. Not exactly. And the majority of the LSU defense is going to play as well. So I want to delve into that coming up shortly. But first, a hat tip to Paris Shand. Remember, Paris Shand showed up at LSU from the University of Arizona a couple of seasons ago. And it was a guy who showed up without a tremendous amount of fanfare, but a guy who had been a contributor for Arizona there at his time in Tucson. And when LSU brought in Shand, prior to the 2023 season, it was on a defensive line where there had to be an overhaul, and they had to add some veteran defensive presence. So remember, Shand is a guy who showed up at Arizona in 2020 in the COVID year and played in 4 games. Then as a redshirt freshman, even the COVID year didn't count, he played in 11 games, started 3. This is a quintessential example of a guy who continued improving throughout his career. 9 games played with 7 starts in 2022 at Arizona, comes to LSU in 2023. Of course, that was the 9-3 season for LSU, and Jaden won the Heisman, and the defense was quite bad, but he played in 12 games and was part of LSU's defensive line rotation in 2023. 17 tackles, 5 TFLs, a couple of sacks. He was an effective player, but this year for LSU in 2024, what made Paris Shand so effective was his versatility. And this happened in particular when Jacobian Guillory was lost for the season with that torn Achilles in just the second week. And the Tigers, you had young guys like Don McKinley. Remember, Ahmad Bro started taking a lot of snaps there. But what LSU had to have was a veteran presence. And Shand, although he's just listed at 275 pounds, 6'4", 275, LSU was playing him as an interior tackle. Like, you were set at end with Braden Swinson and Savion Jones, although Shand gave you snaps there. But look at the snap counts for Paris Shand throughout the course of this season. There was never a game. The fewest snaps he took in a game were 28 against SC in the opener, against South Alabama, and then 28 against Florida. He played 414 defensive snaps for LSU on the season. That's a pretty incredible number. Just when you look at if we look at the total number of snaps defensively on the season, Ashton Stamps played 704, Whit Weeks played 699, Greg Penn played 602, Braden Swinson 591, Savion Jones 590, Major Burns 5. You're talking about all these defensive backs, but on the defensive line, Paris Shand played the most snaps aside from your ends there, but on the interior, Paris Shand played the most defensive snaps at 414. Gio Paez was next at 387, then Ahmad Bro at 249. Understand, this is a guy in Paris Shand who isn't a prototypical interior defensive lineman, but a guy who gave you great snaps both on the interior and on the outside. and when you had to have it. So hat tip to Paris Shand for being a versatile defender, a willing defender for LSU, and a smart player. You know, I remember in his 6th year, I remember whenever Shand moved inside, there was some media availability, and he was asked about that. And he said he knows every position on the defensive line. He's comfortable playing it anywhere. And so that's a guy who did that for you. He gave you snaps in every game, both inside and out. And, you know, that's as a guy that was a very willing defender for LSU, a guy that was, played both left defensive end, right defensive tackle, left defensive tackle, played some nose. That's the type of guy who helped you keep defensively that thing together while you figured it out after the injury to Jacoby and Guillory on the interior. Now, you know, the defensive stats aren't necessarily going to pop. He had 22 tackles this season, just 3 TFLs and a sack, but a guy that gave you tons of snaps, was assignment sound, and is going to be very beneficial to have in the bowl game against Baylor. And so I do want to look ahead at what your lineup is going to look like against Baylor. But, you know, Paris Shand has announced he's going to play in the game. Braden Swinson, Savion Jones are going to play. You know, we haven't had an announcement yet from Gio Paez or Greg Penn, but assuming those 2 guys will play and those announcements may come, but you're looking at a defense that's going to have just about everybody available for this bowl game. And I do want to talk about that when we come back. But hat tip to Paris Shand, who in 2 seasons in Baton Rouge became a pretty consistent defender and one of your highest graded defensive linemen as well, and will play in the bowl game, running it back one more time with the Tigers. So let's take a quick step aside. When we come back, I do want to talk about who LSU is going to have available for the bowl game, what we know now. We'll sort of take account of that for the offense and the defense against Baylor, and take a closer look at how that matchup will fare against the Bears with what we know now about who's going to play in this bowl game. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions that you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That's happened to literally millions of people. Subscriptions they didn't realize they were paying for, and Rocket Money made it easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending. It helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money brings together in one place everything, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, even goals that you want to hit this year. So Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. So you want to cancel your unwanted subscriptions? You need Rocket Money. Cancel those unwanted subscriptions. Reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. Again, rocketmoney.com/locked-on. So with the announcement that Paris Shand will play in the bowl game for LSU, I wanted to sort of take account here of who is going to play, who's going to be out, and how this will stack up against Baylor. If we start on the defensive side of the ball, and you certainly look at LSU's more productive players, look at who is going to be playing in this ball game for the Tigers. So we know that LSU is going to have across its defensive front Gio Paez, Paris Shand at defensive tackle, and then other guys like Sean Washington who are still hanging around for the Tigers this year. Your young guys, Dominant McKinley, Ahmad Bro. So right there, you've got a good rotation on the interior of your defensive line. As for your ends, Savion Jones and Braden Swinson are going to play in the bowl game as well. They've already made those declarations. And then you're going to have the young defensive end as well, and a guy like Gabe Relaford who will be available for you. You don't have Deshaun Womack, which is notable because that's part of your defensive end rotation, but it could be a better opportunity for a younger player to step up and maybe take some of those reps at defensive end after your 2 starters with Swinson and Savion Jones. But again, expecting those guys in their final LSU game to play the majority of the defensive snaps. At linebacker, you have Whit Weeks, who, of course, led the team with 119 tackles. You'll have Devon Keys stepping up, playing a bigger role as well. And while we have not gotten a word yet on Greg Penn, we're all anticipating. My understanding is Greg Penn has been at practice, the 18 jersey, and everyone's expecting him to play. So just look at it this way. Whit Weeks, your leading tackler, is playing. Greg Penn, your second leading tackler, expected to play. Braden Swinson was your third leading tackler, playing. Jordan Gilbert is obviously still with the team and playing. He was your fourth leading tackler. Major Burns, there's not been a declaration yet on Major Burns, but we're anticipating Burns will play in the bowl game. That's your top 5 tacklers. Ashton Stamps, obviously, is playing in the bowl game. That's your 6. So your top 6 tacklers are all playing. Number 7 is Sage Ryan, who's entered the portal and announced that he's playing for or going to Ole Miss, so he's not going to be playing. Savion Jones, next. Zy Alexander, Devon Keys, Deshaun Spears, Paris Shan, Gio Paez, then Harold Perkins, who's injured, then down to Ahmad Bro playing, PJ Woodland playing. You have to get down to like Jordan Allen and JVR Suggs, who have both hit the transfer portal. But then West Weeks. Remember, we talked about West Weeks taking a red shirt, but the NCAA changed the rule. You can call it the Garrett Nussmeier rule if you want. But after that bowl game in 2021, where Nussmeier opted out of the Texas Bowl against Kansas State to maintain that year of eligibility, thank goodness he did. It's why he's able to have another season in Baton Rouge. But West Weeks, who didn't play over that final, just put one game over the final month to maintain his redshirt year, is eligible to play. You could play in the bowl game and not have it count against your eligibility. So West Weeks would be available as well. All this to say, the only real contributors you don't have are Sage Ryan and JVR Suggs, Gabe Relaford, Sean Washington. You had to get all the way down to Deshaun Womack, who had just 8 tackles on the season, as another guy who's unavailable. So you lost some depth pieces out of the portal, with J.K. Johnson leaving, with Kylan Jackson leaving, but I don't know if those are guys we were anticipating playing a big role anyway. Effectively, your entire defense is there for this bowl game against Baylor, and if there's one side of the ball where you really kind of wanted LSU to have all its top guys, it's on the defensive side of the ball, because Baylor offensively has outpaced Baylor defensively this year. Sawyer Robertson, their quarterback, has thrown for 2,600 yards, 26 touchdowns. Baylor is 24th in the country at 34.7 points per game, so just under 35 a game. Defensive, they throw for 246. They run it for 188 a game. So they are a very balanced offense that scores a lot. It's odd because it's a Dave Aranda team, but you certainly want to have all of your defenders there in place against this Baylor offense, which is quite potent. Now, if you flip it over to the offensive side of the ball for LSU, I alluded to the fact that Locked On Baylor in one of their episode titles recently was the entire LSU offense has bailed on this game. That's not exactly the case either. So yes, Emory Jones and Will Campbell, your bookend tackles, are out for LSU. And Garrett Dellinger, who's coming off the ankle injury, I'm told has not been practicing. So it's not to say Dellinger couldn't play. And Brian Kelly did say early in this this bowl preparation that Dellinger would be physically cleared. It's a matter of if he wants to play. But we got a glimpse at the offensive line last week in some practice video that LSU released. And you had Tyree Adams at left tackle, Paul Mabenga at left guard, DJ Chester at center, Bo Bordelon at right guard, and Miles Frazier at right tackle. So now, of the 5 first-team offensive linemen, the only one who was a season-long starter was DJ Chester in a spot at center. Now, Miles Frazier, though, is a 4-year starter, but he's playing tackle. And it's worth mentioning Paul Mabenga started the last 4 games at left guard, so he's back in that spot. So the only 2 new quote-unquote starters are Tyree Adams and Bo Bordelon. Bordelon's been around the program now for 3 years, and Tyree Adams is a redshirt freshman, but they think has a really high ceiling, could be your starting left tackle next year. So you've got some experience and stability there, but yes, the only guy, truthfully, that's in the spot they've been in all year is Chester. But you've got really 3 starting offensive linemen in that group. But your starting quarterback and Garrett Nussmeier is there. Your starting running back in Caden Durham is there. We haven't gotten a declaration yet from Josh Williams, but we're all anticipating number 18, Josh Williams, is going to play, and he's been out of practice. Although they haven't done a video release announcing that he's playing. They may do more of that as the week goes along. So Durham, Williams, Nussmeier, two and a half, if you want to count Mubenga, starters on your offensive line. Aaron Anderson, who is your second leading receiver this year. Xavier Thomas, who is a key contributor for you offensively, is still out there. I do think the big question marks are going to be at receiver and at tight end. Now, Brian Kelly confirmed Trey'Dez Green has been playing tight end in preparation for the bowl game, but you'll also have Giovanni Peterson. Now, Giovanni Peterson isn't a name that's a household name, but he's a guy we did talk about in fall camp, and he was on every special teams unit. And he is your big, thick, prototypical inline blocking tight end who can catch some passes. He just wasn't going to see the field with Mason Taylor out there. But Kamorian Pimpton gone. I think this feels like a really good opportunity for someone like Giovanni Peterson, who started his career as a walk-on. And I'm looking at his bio right now. He's a redshirt junior. So again, he's in his fourth year with LSU, 6'4", 250, and he is put together. So that's a guy that can be a physical blocker at the point of attack. And maybe Trey'Dez Green is a guy that factors more in the passing game there. But Chris Hilton, Aaron Anderson, Xavier Thomas, Trey'Dez Green, you have options there at receiver and among the pass catchers. You're just going to have some guys step up who hadn't done it yet. And you might just see a lion's share of the offensive reps go to Chris Hilton, Aaron Anderson, Xavier Thomas out there, and then Trey'Dez Green as well. So not ideal for LSU among the receivers, because three of your top four pass catchers are gone, with no Kyron Lacy, no Mason Taylor, and obviously CJ Daniels hitting the transfer portal. But, it is an opportunity for Chris Hilton, who had three touchdown receptions in the last two games, two against Oklahoma. Aaron Anderson, we know, has been a really good target, was your number 2 target this year. Caden Durham will factor into the pass game. So, does a guy like Javen Nicholas, former walk-on, maybe get some more run, a few more reps? Worth seeing. Remember, you can play the young guys. Is this an opportunity for Kylan Billiot, Jelani Watkins to get out on the field, stretch the legs, and run a little bit? I think you've got guys at the top with Hilton, with Aaron Anderson, Xavier Thomas, Trey'Dez. That it's that gap, that next tier of the rotation, where you might find yourself a little thin. But you got Nussmeier slinging it. You got Caden Durham running it, and Josh Williams as well. You got enough there offensively. And, the odds makers look at this game and see it pretty even. It's been right around a pick 'em as of the moment we're recording this. Baylor is a 1-point favorite in that ball game. Baylor not really affected at all by the opt-outs, but I think the bigger, more notable part of this, I think LSU is going to move the ball. The bigger, more notable part is effectively your entire defense is out there except for Sage Ryan, who entered the transfer portal. So Jordan Gilbert will be back there at safety. It likely means Deshaun Spears starts next to him. But for all intents and purposes, everybody else that's played a key role for you will be out there defensively for LSU against Baylor on New Year's Eve. Okay, it'll be after New Year's Eve the next time we see the LSU basketball team out there. Forgive me, they'll play Sunday, just before LSU football plays on Tuesday. But the Tigers did play their penultimate non-conference game against UNO on Sunday at the Maravich Center. I'll give you a quick thumbnail on how that went if you missed it. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Love telling you about FanDuel. Man, if you love to sports bet like I do, you got to check out FanDuel if you haven't done it yet, because FanDuel always has great deals for you. The NFL playoffs are almost here, and it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a dub. I love betting on props, which players will score a touchdown. What's a lot of fun is betting overs on the LSU players in the NFL. Joe Burrow over passing yards, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase over receiving yards, Jaden Daniels rushing attempts over hit on Sunday. That number was 7.5. He went over 9 in the dramatic win. I'm telling you, there's so many ways to play at FanDuel. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. The LSU basketball Tigers got a win in the non-conference against UNO. It was a really sluggish start for the basketball Tigers. Not entirely surprising. It was a sleepy Sunday at the Maravich Center, and UNO is one of the worst basketball teams in the country. As we talked about, their net ranking was in the 330s. There's 364 teams in the net in college basketball. So, again, one of the worst teams in the country. UNO actually at the start of the second half tied the score at 38. So, with about 5 minutes to play, with about 5 minutes into the second half, UNO had tied the game. But over the next 10 minutes or so, LSU went on a 22-1 run and took over the game. And by the end of the game, LSU had walk-ons on the floor. The Tigers were just 2 of 16 from 3 in the first half, and they had 9 turnovers in the first half as well. It allowed UNO to stay in. As a matter of fact, UNO started the game 12 to take a 12-4 lead at the start. But LSU's physicality, their length caused a lot of problems for the Privateers. LSU won the backboards 50-37, 17 offensive boards. Corey Chest, another double-double for LSU. That's his 6th consecutive double-double. He's been incredible, the redshirt freshman. And you had nice play in your backcourt as well. Jordan Sears, Jai Bailey, Cam Carter played well in the game for LSU. Victorious Miller, Carter had a double-double with 14 and 11. Victorious Miller had 17 points. We're starting to see what these rotations are going to look like and who are going to be the key contributors. Curtis Givens, his development has been exciting to see. He had a 6-assist game against Stetson, had 5 more against UNO, and didn't commit a turnover against UNO. So you're seeing a young player that's continuing to develop. LSU had 8 block shots against UNO, 3 by freshman Robert Miller. So Victorious Miller, Robert Miller, Curtis Givens, Corey Chest. You're seeing the young guys provide a really nice complement to the veteran backcourt that LSU brought in the transfer portal. Listen, nobody should look at this game and be blown away by the LSU win. It's disappointing that it was sluggish the way it was at the start, but really, and Matt McMahon has said this, these 3 games, right, after the loss to SMU, the 3 games against Stetson, UNO, and Mississippi Valley are singularly, because there's no threat of you losing any of these games. You're literally playing 3 of the worst teams in the country. These are singularly about LSU improving, getting guys experience, playing more consistent together. They're I hate to say glorified exhibitions because they count, but they're not going to help your net ranking at all. For example, LSU beating UNO cost you 5 spots in the net. You beat UNO, but dropped 5 spots to 62. Like, just playing a team as bad as UNO is going to ding you. Same thing whenever you play Mississippi Valley. They're dead last in the net ranking. So you're going to have plenty of opportunities to help your net and all those things because you're going to play in the SEC, and basically the entire league is in quad 1. But 7 of LSU's 10 wins as of now have been against quad 4 teams. And both losses have been against quad 1 teams. 9 of the 16 teams in the SEC are in the top 31 of the net. So Auburn, Tennessee, Florida, all in the top 4. The lowest ranked team in the net in the SEC is South Carolina at 84. So you're going to have plenty of opportunities in the league to boost your net ranking. Just playing those better teams are going to help your strength of schedule and your net. Right now for LSU, it is all about getting better as a team and getting ready for the gauntlet that's coming in conference play. So hopefully you'll have a clean outing. They'll be off this week for Christmas. Hopefully you have a clean outing on Sunday against Mississippi Valley, get another win, get to 11-2 before you start conference play. And that's the roadmap we've talked about. Really would have liked for them to beat SMU. So win over Mississippi Valley gets you to 12. So then 8 conference wins put you at 20. It might take a 9-win conference season for LSU to get to 20, obviously, and feel comfortable about being in the NCAA tournament. But it may be something where you go to the SEC tournament needing to win a game or two there to punch your ticket. But it's very much in play for LSU. This team is good enough to be there. They have a couple of nice non-conference wins that we've talked about, going to Kansas State, beating Central Florida. You'll have plenty of opportunities in conference play. But that key number, if this LSU team can get to 20 wins, they should hear their name called on Selection Sunday. And I think that's doable for LSU. But a lot of work to do as they continue to improve. Of course, we'll be here talking about it on Locked on LSU. Hey, thanks so much for making us your first listen every single day. Now, for your second listen, how about you go check out my buddy Chris Gordy on Locked on SEC, available wherever you get podcasts or on YouTube. If you are listening on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. Until next time, it is Locked on LSU, your team every day.